That's where defense mechanisms come in, right?
Precisely. In Freudian theory especially, psychological defense mechanisms act as these unconscious strategies the ego uses to protect the conscious mind from overwhelming or threatening unconscious content, particularly anxiety-provoking impulses from the id.
Okay, like protecting us from ourselves, in a way.
In a way, yes. Examples include things like repression, unconsciously pushing distressing thoughts or feelings out of awareness altogether.
Just burying it.
Denial, where we refuse to acknowledge an unpleasant reality. Projection, where we attribute our own unacceptable feelings or traits on other people.
Blaming others for how we feel.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
And rationalization, where we create seemingly logical, acceptable explanations for behaviors that are actually driven by unconscious motives.
Making excuses, basically.
Consciously, it feels like a good reason, but unconsciously, it serves a defensive purpose. Now, while these defenses can offer short-term relief from anxiety, they can also prevent important unconscious material from reaching consciousness.
Right.
And that can lead to psychological difficulties or unhelpful patterns repeating over time.
So they're like a mental Band-Aid that might stop the bleeding for a bit, but sometimes prevents proper healing.
That's a good analogy.
You mentioned that feel before we think idea earlier. How does our understanding of the brain, neuroscience, support this interplay between conscious and unconscious?
Modern neuroscience strongly supports this. There's a lot of evidence that emotional processing often begins unconsciously. Our brains, particularly areas like the amygdala, can register and react to emotional information even before it reaches the parts of the brain responsible for conscious awareness, like the prefrontal cortex.
So the reaction happens before we even know why.
Often, yes. This explains why we might have that instant gut feeling about someone or react emotionally to a situation before we've had time to consciously process all the details. And these unconscious emotional responses then significantly influence our subsequent cognitive processes, our decision-making, our judgments, how we interact with others. So this unconscious emotional pathway can have a very powerful and immediate impact on our conscious thoughts and behaviors.
Okay, wow. We've explored the history, the theories, how we might access it, this constant interaction. Now, let's get to the really crucial question, I think.
Yeah.
Why does understanding all of this actually matter in our lives? Why is it important to even consider integrating these two aspects of ourselves?
Well, Jung, in particular, really emphasized that achieving psychological wholeness necessitates this integration. It's about bringing the conscious and unconscious aspects of our personality together.
Wholeness, okay.
He viewed that process of individuation we talked about as fundamentally about becoming aware of and integrating previously unconscious content into a more complete sense of self. Without this integration, the unconscious can manifest in problematic ways.
Like how?
Like projecting our own unacknowledged qualities, maybe negative ones, the shadow onto other people. Or experiencing various psychological symptoms like anxiety or depression that might stem from unresolved unconscious conflicts. Or just feeling a sense of internal fragmentation, like different parts of you are pulling in different directions.
That resonates. If we're not aware of these hidden parts, they can sort of operate on autopilot in ways that aren't always helpful or even cause problems.
Exactly. They can run the show without our conscious consent, so to speak.
So what are the tangible benefits then of bringing this unconscious material into the light, into our awareness?
Oh, the benefits are really profound, potentially. Firstly, it leads to significantly enhanced self-understanding.
Knowing yourself better.
Much better. By recognizing these previously unconscious patterns, motivations, unresolved conflicts, we can gain much deeper insights into why we react the way we do, what truly drives our choices, the roots of our emotional responses.
Okay.
It also allows us to identify and question any unconscious biases or automatic assumptions we might hold. To understand how our early experiences, maybe even childhood stuff, continue to shape our present-day reactions.
Seeing the connections.
Right. And on a more positive note, it can also help us uncover hidden talents, potentials, resources within ourselves that we weren't even aware we had, things tucked away in that treasure chest.
So it's about gaining a much richer, more complete, maybe more honest picture of ourselves.
Absolutely.
What other advantages come with this kind of integration?
Another key advantage is increased psychological freedom.
Freedom. How so?
Well, when unconscious processes are operating outside our awareness, they can exert this powerful, almost automatic influence on our lives, right? Limiting our choices, our reactions.
Like being stuck in a loop.
Exactly. As we bring this unconscious content into consciousness, we create a crucial space, a space between a stimulus and our response. We become less reactive, more able to make intentional choices that align with our conscious values and goals, rather than simply being driven by old unconscious patterns.
More choice, less autopilot.
Precisely. And importantly, many psychological approaches suggest that making unconscious processes conscious can actually lead to a reduction in psychological symptoms.
How does that work?
When repressed material or automatic negative thought patterns or underlying assumptions become available to our conscious awareness, they tend to lose some of their power. They become less mysterious, less overwhelming, and they become more amenable to psychological processing, understanding, and integration. This can really alleviate distress associated with things like anxiety, depression, or trauma.
That's really empowering, moving from feeling driven by forces we don't understand to having more conscious agency, more choice, and even finding relief from psychological struggles.
It can be, yes. It's often hard work, but potentially very rewarding.
So how are these ideas about the unconscious being applied in practical ways today? You mentioned therapy.
Yeah, in the clinical field, various therapeutic approaches directly engage with the unconscious. Psychodynamic therapies, descendants of Freud and Jung, continue to use techniques like free association and dream analysis to uncover unconscious conflicts.
Still relevant then?
Very much so. But also, mindfulness practices, while not solely focused on the unconscious in the Freudian sense, definitely aim to increase our awareness of automatic thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations.
Noticing the autopilot.
Exactly, which can provide valuable insights into unconscious patterns. Somatic therapies work with the idea that unconscious experiences, especially trauma, can be stored in the body and use physical techniques to access and process them.
It's interesting.
Schema therapy focuses on identifying and addressing these early maladaptive patterns or schemas that operate largely unconsciously and drive behavior. And even trauma therapies like EMDR, eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing can help process unconscious traumatic material that's gotten stuck.
So it remains a really central concept in helping people with a whole range of psychological challenges.
Definitely. The methods evolve, but the core idea persists.
What about in our everyday lives, outside of formal therapy? How can just, understanding the unconscious be beneficial for anyone listening?
Oh, it has a wealth of practical applications. For instance, just by becoming more attuned to our automatic habits, how we react, what we reach for, we can make more conscious choices about how we actually want to behave.
Breaking bad habits, maybe.
Or building better ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Understanding our emotional triggers, those knee-jerk reactions, can significantly improve our ability to manage our emotions more effectively rather than being hijacked by them. Recognizing our potential unconscious biases, we all have them, and can lead to fairer, better decision-making in all aspects of our lives, from work to relationships.
That's huge.
It is. Tapping into the unconscious through practices like mindfulness or journaling, or even just paying attention to our intuition, our dreams, can actually foster and enhance our creativity, accessing different ways of thinking.
Right.
And perhaps most importantly, I think, understanding that many of our motivations and behaviors are rooted in these unconscious processes can cultivate greater self-compassion.
How so?
Well, instead of just judging ourselves harshly for certain reactions or patterns, we can start to understand why they might be there, where they came from. It allows for a kinder, more understanding stance towards ourselves.
That's a really hopeful perspective, that understanding this hidden dimension of ourselves isn't just about digging up problems, but can lead to more kindness towards ourselves and more skillful choices in our daily lives.
I think that's a key takeaway, yes.
And just quickly, what are the current frontiers? Where is research heading in this area? What are scientists still actively exploring about the unconscious mind?
There's a tremendous amount of exciting ongoing research. Neuroscientists are continuing to investigate the neural pathways, trying to map out the brain's intricate flow of information between conscious and unconscious systems.
Looking under the hood.
Exactly. Experimental psychologists are developing increasingly sophisticated methods for studying implicit cognition, uncovering the nuances of automatic processes like bias or learning. There's also a growing interest in developing practical techniques to help us become more aware of these automatic processes in daily life.
And making it more accessible.
Right. Researchers are also examining how cultural and social factors shape our unconscious biases and assumptions. That's a big area. And there's an ongoing effort to integrate insights from all these different psychological traditions, psychodynamic, cognitive neuroscience, into more comprehensive models of the unconscious mind. It's a truly dynamic and constantly evolving evolving field.
It certainly sounds like it. A lot still to learn. So to bring our deep dive to a close today, it seems really clear that the unconscious mind, far from being just, a passive repository, is this powerful, incredibly active force. It profoundly shapes our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors.
Yeah.
And the process of bringing its contents into conscious awareness through these various means we've discussed really offers us significant opportunities for personal growth, deeper self-understanding, and ultimately, greater psychological freedom.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that there's this rich and complex inner world operating just beneath the surface of our awareness, and that by learning to understand its language, its influence, we can gain a much fuller, more nuanced understanding of ourselves and really our place in the world.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to consider as we wrap up. Now that you have maybe a glimpse into the depths of your own unconscious, what long-held belief, perhaps, or automatic habit might you feel a sense of curiosity to explore just a little more deeply? What might be operating beneath the surface that, once brought into the light, could offer you a new perspective on yourself and your life? It's definitely something worth reflecting on.